Well, no one knows Italian football better than Nicky Bandini. Nicky joins me now here on the parlay. Nicky, all right. So the Conference League, probably really happy. I imagine that Roma made it to the final. Jose Mourinho's still box office, let's be honest. And I imagine brings a real spotlight to a tournament that probably needs it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it's a real sort of dilemma that people have sort of spoken about, I think, in the last few weeks. The Conference League was created, I think, in theory, so that all of the teams from the less obvious leagues, from the leagues that don't get as much attention, the teams that wouldn't necessarily have the chance to have these extended European runs in the Champions League or the Europa League could have their tournament. And so is it sort of disappointing then that Roma, who come from Serie A and Serie A teams, should be aspiring to win the Champions League even, or at least be in the latter parts of it? Is it a shame that you've got Roma? And I think it's not, because I think without Roma in this competition, you don't get some of the great stories we've had through this competition. I mean, them losing to Bodo Glimt 6-1 in the group stage was, I think, one of the most astonishing, dramatic results anywhere in Europe this season. I think actually probably is one of the reasons that would have got more eyeballs on the competition. So I think it's been a good thing. I actually honestly, like, low-key really enjoyed the Conference League, not just sort of I'm enjoying it for work way. I think it's been a really interesting competition. I think it's great for a team like Feyenoord, of course, Roma's opponents in the final, who have been European Cup winners before, by the way, but in the modern reality of football, in the way that financial aspects of European football set up now, wouldn't have the chance to play in a European final necessarily without this. And I think it's been great for Roma, who, despite being a big club from a big footballing country, from one of the big 5 European leagues, it feels like we sort of have to call them now. Actually, Roma have won one European trophy in their whole existence, which was the Fairs Cup, which, you know, was against Birmingham City. It's not one of the sort of big European trophies either. So actually, I think people miss that actually even some of the clubs we think of as bigger clubs haven't had that moment of glory in Europe. And I just think that Jose, being Jose, and with his force of personality, has made this into something huge, even if it isn't one of those top 2 competitions. And I think that is the other big story for me of Roma's run is that Jose has got the buy-in. He's got the fans believing that this matters. And in the end, in football, she's all about the fans, or should be all about the fans and what they're enjoying. Isn't that everything? You know, if we all say this matters, it matters.
I must admit, when I first heard about the Conference League, I dismissed it, and I probably made fun of it at some point. But as it's gone on, I must admit, I do see the place for it. And I think it was Jonathan Wilson broke it down why it's a good tournament. And I thought, oh yeah, you know what? He makes some really good points. It is important for these clubs. That being said, I know after the Torino win on the weekend, some of the Roma players were saying, yeah, we haven't even studied Feyenoord just yet. We have no idea. That will start on Monday, they said. Do you think they're taking it seriously, the players?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I've seen players in the last week saying this is our Champions League final. I saw one Roma player, trying to remember who it was. I've been reading a lot of different transcripts from different press conferences. There's definitely someone in the first team. It might have been Pellegrini, but I think I might be. I'm not 100% confident on that. But one of Roma's first team players saying, you know what, like, all right, it's not the Champions League, but actually, this is as valuable to us as the Europa League. It's still a European trophy. It's still a moment that we're having. And whether or not it was Pellegrini who said it, Pellegrini certainly is trying to become a Roma captain who's led his team to win something in Europe, which Francesco Totti didn't do, which Daniele De Rossi didn't do. You know, this is a big moment, I think, and I think for several weeks now, this has been Roma's focus. It's true. I've seen the same things and heard the same things you have, James, about them not having necessarily prepared for this game specifically, because Jose Mourinho has been keeping them on the no, we've got to finish the season strong, and that's because he would want to be in the Europa League next season, and they had to finish in the top 6 to guarantee that, unless they win this game. And so that has been a focus. But I do think this game really does matter to the team. They've been having sort of team bonding dinners in the build up to it, and you see as well, I think one of the big indicators for me of quite how much it matters to people, Roma put tickets on sale just for a big screen showing of the game at the Stadio Olimpico, and that's got 50,000 people, I think, coming to it so far. So people in Roma are into it, like they really are. It's not just a thing that we're saying because we're producing content for people. People in Roma are into it.
Are they into Jose? I mean, obviously, his first year in Roma, he qualifies for the Europa League. Like I mentioned before, he has at times been box office once again. Has this season been considered as a success by the fans? Have they really embraced the Jose era at Roma?
Yeah, the fans have embraced it. There's been skepticism sort of around him in Italy, especially at the beginning. You know, up to January, I think the results and performances on the pitch weren't great. And of course, there was that 6-1 thrashing by Bodo Glimt. But I think the thing that felt even more damning at the time was afterwards, Mourinho comes out and says, well, I've only got 13 players in my whole squad I can rely on. This is my fault for rotating players. I shouldn't have trusted these players. I can't trust anyone. And you think, you know what? Roma have spent 100 million euros on in the last sort of summer in the transfer window. They spent a lot of money actually in building that squad. And you'd think that another manager wouldn't get away with that, right? Another manager would have got torched for saying things like that. No, work with what you've got. You've got all these resources. And that isn't what happened for Jose. He actually got some more help in January. They brought in Sergio Oliveira. And I think there's been this mindset amongst Roma fans ever since he arrived that actually, look, we have been doing things in different ways for a long time, but what have we won? What has this club won? Jose's won. Jose's the winner. He's come in here. So if he says this is wrong, then who do we trust? We trust Jose. And there really has been that mentality. And I think he's also really leaned into a thing that I hear a lot when I talk to Italian ultra groups, or at least when I have in the past, and you hear the same sort of message from lots of them, but I think maybe even more sort of strongly in Rome than anywhere else. And they'll tell you, look, we don't expect the team to be perfect. We don't expect to make mistakes. We want to see them care about it as much as we care about it. And I think that Jose from day one has sold to the fans that he cares about it as much as they care about it. Right. And that, I think, has been such an important part of why, even when results weren't great, they were on his side. And certainly now that he's taking them to this European final, that they are all on board. And yes, you said it, you believed it, you've always been caring about this as much as we do, and we'll do it together.
He does love the Serie A, doesn't he? And obviously at United, it didn't really work out. At Spurs, started off pretty well, didn't really work out. There were some reservations about, does he still have it as a top manager? What do you think, Nicky? Does he?
I think this season is a mixed bag. I think that's the only sort of honest way you can talk about this season. There have been really good things and there's been less good things. I think their results domestically haven't been that great. I mean, finishing sixth, I suppose it's about where you'd expect them to finish. I don't think that talent for talent that they are one of the top 4 teams in Italy, but I think they probably should be ahead of Lazio, and they're not. And that normally would hurt most managers. Doesn't seem to have hurt him that much. And I think that some of the sort of early season football in particular was that old sort of frustrating, oh God, here we go again. It's just a low block and sit there and it's stultifying to watch. And fine, if you're winning all the time, you can get away with it. But when you're not, then is that good enough? Mm-hmm. I think he's shown more variety through the season, actually. And I think even going into this game, I am sort of curious to know exactly what he's going to do with his team. I think when you get Zaniolo in there, and he's been hot and cold on Zaniolo, but when you get Zaniolo in there, you get a bit more attacking chaos. You get a bit more sort of unpredictability. And I think that Mourinho has actually adapted a couple of different versions of his team, which we've seen in the Conference League. I think the second leg against Bodo Glimt is a real great example of what Roma can look like when he takes the reins off, or when he takes the break off, I guess. Because they went hell for leather. And for the first time, after 3 games of failing to beat Bodo Glimt, they looked in a different category. They looked like they were far superior, and they won that game. And then in the semi-final against Leicester, he did rein it back in, and Zaniolo was back out, and they did a more cautious way of doing things. But actually, it still felt impressive. I thought that second leg against Leicester, they were in control. There was never a moment in that tie, or in the second leg of that tie, when I thought Leicester going to win. I thought it was Roma scored and they locked it up. So I think there's been improvement through the season, and that's probably the biggest thing. Because if you look at it in purely comparing him to Paolo Fonseca that came before, domestic results and the amount of money spent again since Fonseca left, it's not that impressive on the surface. But if you look at it just as its own trajectory from where things were earlier this season to how they finished the season, more or less, there were a couple of games there at the very end of the Serie A season where it felt like they got distracted thinking about this and weren't trying that hard in the league anymore. But the trajectory is good. So that's encouraging. And I think if he can win this trophy, it's going to put a very different gloss and feel on the season to if they don't.
On the Serie A too, it's been a really great season. Milan back where they think they belong, first time in 11 years. A really great race with Inter Milan, of course. It seems there is maybe a resurgence on the horizon in Italian football. I hope so. World Cup aside, and I'm sure in the months to come, Nicky, we'll talk about that. A lot of our viewers here are still, not in a good place regarding that. But thank you so much. Listen, if anyone out there, and there's many of you who are Italian Serie A fans, please listen to Nicky's Serie A Chronicles podcast. It's just outstanding. You can find her everywhere. Nicky, thank you so much. It's been a while, but this has been fun.
It's been so good to do something again, James. It's been way too long. And
It has been.
yeah,
We'll do it
thanks
again
for
soon.
bringing me in.
That's Nicky Bandini.